we're doing what we used to do every week, but it's the first time we've done it in a month. It's High School Sports Talk Plus in a new studio because it's almost Halloween. We want to spook everybody. Tricks and treats, we got them both. I'm Matt Hatfield. He's the coach, Ed Young of Nansemond River, and my co-host Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. to noon on ESPN Radio 94.1. Listen every Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. And also, he occasionally pops in on the 757 at 6, which you can hear weeknights 6 to 7 on ESPN Radio 94.1.
And I'm pointing to our sign, which is usually behind me,
We don't
but
have
it
a
isn't
sign
behind
today.
me.
No sign today.
So it's 94.1 ESPN Radio, which I usually point to, but it's not behind us because they moved us from an undisclosed location.
Yeah, but we are still on planet Earth. And it might be a sign without the sign that the playoffs are near. We got 1 week left in the regular season, Ed. As we look at the picture for the postseason for all 4 divisions involving teams from Hampton Roads, Class 6, Class 5, Class 4, Class 3. I think the big storyline is we've gotten some of the big games out of the way now. The Beach District has settled. We feel like Ocean Lakes is the best team, which is what we thought in the summertime, but we thought there were some contenders, and there still are, as it's kind of crowded with the likes of Lancetown and Bayside and Tallwood and Cox in Class 6. Salem very good in Class 5, coming off the overtime loss to Bayside, getting a win over Cox without Tavion Robinson in the end of that game. And then in the big one in the Southeastern District, before we talk about the Eastern and the Bay Rivers and the Peninsula, last week Indian River beating Oscar Smith 28-16. You said on the video show back in the summer they would do so, and then you got off it, and you probably should have stayed on it because the Braves are 9-0 and could very well be Hampton Roads' best chance for a state title.
Yeah, I thought Indian River, going into the season, had a little bit more talent than Oscar Smith. Hard to say that, but I just felt that way. But the way the season were going, though both undefeated, I started leaning towards Oscar Smith in this game. Big part is the game was at Oscar Smith. Obviously proven wrong in there, and we'll see what happens at this point on. But they have a great chance for a state title, but they're gonna run into a team by the name of Highland Springs, who has laid claim to that title, 3 straight years?
3 straight years. Their wide receiver, Ali Jennings, just committed recently to West Virginia. They're loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. They've been outscoring people, it seems like by 40 points every game, 40-plus points every game. And they are just a dominant juggernaut, if you will, Ed. And looking at Class 5, they would meet in the state semifinals if they were both to win their regions, Indian River in 5A, Highland Springs in 5B. The one thing I look at, too, with this is the defense of Indian River. Maybe that gives them a chance. They're obviously loaded with talent on offense, a host of skill position players and backs with the likes of Lamarion James and Deshaun Cromwell and Tyrell Sproul running and catching the ball. Carmelo Sweat, Jamal Burnell's a freshman who's going to be good for years to come. Their quarterback, Don Brooks, who came over from Oscar Smith. Leading Hampton Roads in passing, but that defense was just shut out Grassfield, led by Ashawn Moore, who you said back in the summer at linebacker, he could be a difference maker. I thought he was the baddest dude, which means a good dude, on the field last week, and that's with some other great defensive players led by Ben Smiley on the line, the 4-star UVA commit. They have a lot of matchup issues for teams. You just wonder if they'll have those matchup issues should they see Highland Springs in the state semis. And furthermore, could somebody like a Maury or Salem keep Indian River from getting to that big game?
Yeah, because we're sitting here talking that they're going all the way. Well, all the way would be you have to get by Highland Springs first because they're not going to meet in the championship. It would have to be in the state semis. But you're right, just getting out of your own particular Class 5A region would be a Maury. You got to get past a Maury, who I think would probably be the best, have the best shot at beating them. Because Maury has proven, they could put points on the board, host of athletes at the skill position, and they've done a fairly good job of shutting down people too. So, because you got to have both, and people say the deeper you get in the playoffs, your defense has to be even better. And something we rarely talk about, special teams action.
Well, and that was good for Indian River. Thaddeus Blackburn, the kicker, made all his extra points against Oscar Smith. He actually got off a key punt from his own 1-yard line without getting hit or having a safety, and that was an issue for Oscar Smith, or for Indian River against Oscar Smith. A couple of those games with big returns. Dimitri Speedy Payne has been a factor for them in the return game. They also have Lamarion James, who's capable of running one back to the house. So I think that's a plus for Indian River's special teams is much better. Listen to these figures though real quick before we move on. Indian River and Highland Springs, what they've done to their opponents. Indian River has outscored its opponents on the year by a mark of 408-66. Closest game, 28-16 against Oscar Smith. Just think about that for a second. Closest game was that. That's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah, They're putting points on the board, but again, they're stopping people too. You're not coming in and scoring 30 points against Indian River. It's not going to happen.
But you think that's something, right? What do you think Highland Springs has done this year?
I'm going to say 44.
The average game is 44-7. Boy, you're close. It's 52-3. They've outscored their opponents 469-27. We're talking about 5 shutouts. Nobody has scored more than 8 points on this team. Which you remember back in the summer, I said that defense led by Christian White and Jason Jones at the linebackers, and then you got a great host of DBs with Tremaine Talbert and David Laney and the D-line. So I said it'd be hard to see anybody score 2 touchdowns on them. I'm not sure in the playoffs anybody will, and there's some good teams in Region 5B. So that's kind of the matchup everybody is looking forward to if we get it, Highland Springs, Indian River. But I said best chance for a state title. Let's go to the lower divisions, Class 4 and Class 3, because Lake Taylor had the one trip up unexpectedly to us, losing to Norcom 33-13. All they've done since then is put up a couple of 60-plus numbers on the board and bounce back efforts in a resounding way against Portsmouth Schools, Wilson, and Churchland. They got a tougher game coming up with Booker T. Washington. Lafayette's unbeaten. We recorded this before their game with Poquoson. He's got a little bit of hunch Poquoson could win this one, and I don't think you're wrong because Poquoson's defense is good. They had the one game where they got upset by Tab, but with Robert Hennessy graduating, you look at some of the guys they've had at linebacker that have stepped up in his place, and Hennessy now at Emory and Henry. You've seen Max Barrett, you've seen Colton Hicks, and Donovan Edwards at defensive back had 3 interceptions of the night in the first half, I believe it was, against Smithfield. So Poquoson could give Lafayette a chance, but these 3 teams, give me the best chance. You got to pick one, Ed. Lafayette, Lake Taylor, or Phoebus, whose one loss came to Lake Taylor, Phoebus being in Class 3. Best chance for a state title of those 3.
I'm going to lean towards Phoebus.
Ooh. And see, I would have said last month Lake Taylor, but I think you might be right. Phoebus is playing really well, and they got a key game later on today. We record this a little bit around Saturday midday with Kickingham, who I think has been an improved story, one of the surprise teams of the year. And we talked about it, players of the year in the summer, Jonathan Melvin, who's played running back, he's played linebacker, he's played quarterback for Kickingham, getting some FCS school interest for the next level. He's such a key cog for Kickingham, keeping them in position to win some of these close games. They have 2 wins by 3 points each to Heritage and Warwick. But Phoebus, I look at the peninsula, and though it's down, they've just been going about their business rather quietly. Chris Daniels at quarterback's got some experience now. Their defense is getting pressure on the opponents. And they had a chance to beat Lake Taylor. Lost that game 21-17. But almost more impressed with them against Lake Taylor than Norcom. And I say that only because, and Norcom's in Class 3 too, because they kept that Lake Taylor offense down. It wasn't a matter of they threw it over the top. They played a physical grudge match and hung with them toe-to-toe, lost it at the end.
Well, I think Phoebus has proved throughout the year they're going to stop people with their defense. And again, we say as you get further into playoffs, you're playing better teams. You've got to be able to stop people from getting the end zone. And then you got to make sure you outscore your opponent by at least 1 point to win the game. I think Phoebus has the offense, and their defense has really shown they're stopping. I think they're just rounding into shape in terms of where they really want to be at this time of the year, and that's playoff time. And
the most they gave up was 21. And much like, circling a team, I know Jeremy Blunt sort of hit on it in the summertime. They've been circling Hopewell. Chance to get back at Hopewell for beating them in a 1-4 upset last year. Remember, Hopewell backed into the playoffs, losing its last 3 regular season games a year ago. They don't have the quarterback, Greg Cuffey, who's at William and Mary. They don't have the running back in Ronnie Walker, who's at Indiana, but they've had other guys step up here lately. Travion Henderson at quarterback, Robert Bricks at running back, who's a 10th grader who's very good. Hopewell's a team. They lose to Thomasdale in overtime, double OT, 49-42, I think it was. They just beat Dinwiddie with a shutout, 7-0. A Hopewell-Phoebus game, much like last year's game, which was low scoring. I think it was 7-6. I'll pull up a score. That could be one score wins the game, and it could be going to overtime at 0-0 with those 2 defenses.
Defense are that strong, but I think both those teams have mature offenses that they'll be able to put more points in the game. I kind of think, even though both are good defensive teams, that's double-digit
really
points for both those teams.
Okay.
I don't see a 7-6, 7-0. I think because they have enough athletes at that skill position.
Well, last year was 7-6. Hopewell won it.
Yeah, I kind of look like, at the very least, they're in the teens.
Ooh, I'll be surprised they get to the 20s. Teens could happen. Could happen. So I'm actually with you on that. I mean, Lake Taylor, Lafayette, we want to see that matchup. I think in terms of local matchup interest, people are going to talk about Oscar Smith. Ocean Lakes could meet in the Region 6A championship. Some injuries there would make that game less fantastic in my eyes from the standpoint of Cam Kelly. May or may not have him for Oscar Smith. Jake Lowe was out for Ocean Lakes. People want to see maybe Indian River Maury in 5, but to me, Lake Taylor Lafayette would be the most interesting playoff matchup we can get between two 7-5-7 teams, just because we've been looking forward to it for a few years. We haven't gotten it. We've gotten Oscar Smith Ocean Lakes before.
Yes.
We got Indian River Maury last year, though it was 1-8, and it was a game that produced over 100 points on the board. That was an epic game with over 1,000 yards of offense with Indian River and Maury last year, but it was the 1-8 game. And I still have some questions, albeit as good as Maury is, with Sheridan Jones and Keandre Lambert and their defense stepping up here lately for Coach Doreen McCain. I still have some questions about their line play. Can they block that front four for Indian River and keep that game from being, like last year's 76-41 game? To me, Lake Taylor Lafayette's, though, the most potentially interesting playoff game we could have with two 7-5-7 teams.
And I agree with you because we know so much about Lake Taylor and what they do. Why don't we know so much about Lafayette and what they do? They're a winning program. They got 60-some straight wins in the Bay Rivers.
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah, I just think sometimes maybe we think of Lafayette as a redheaded stepchild, so to speak, where they're really not that good. Okay, but why? Their record shows they are. They've beaten people, and Lake Taylor, that's not going to be a pushover. Now, Lake Taylor will not back down from anybody, and Hank Sawyer shows that by the schedule he plays. But that, I do agree, but probably because of Ocean Lakes, Oscar Smith, we've seen before. That would be the matchup to really look at, because when Lafayette's playing their style of game, they can beat anybody at any level in the state. I firmly believe that.
It's true, and they've outscored their foes coming into the Pocosi game 46-6 on average on the year. They did beat Norcom 49-12. So if you believe in the transitive property, you say, well, Lafayette beat Norcom, who beat Lake Taylor. They should beat Lake Taylor. It doesn't always work that way.
It doesn't work that well.
And remember, Norcom has gotten healthier, and they could be a key factor in that Class 3 playoffs. It might not just be a collision course of Phoebus Hopewell. Maybe Norcom gets in the mix because they've gotten Antoine Powell-Ryland back at defensive end. He's picked up offers from UVA and Virginia Tech. Torres Jones is healthy at linebacker. Norcom's shown some improvement and got some fresher bodies than they did when they met Lafayette back on August the 30th in the game that was suspended due to lightning, and then they finished up the next day. But, Ed, you're right. Lafayette doesn't have that marquee name this year. Malik Newton's been a marquee name for Lake Taylor, the sophomore running back. But losing Jack Irwin to William and Mary, their linebacker, losing Armani Byrne, their defensive end, to Hampton University. Believe it or not, this Lafayette team may be faster and more athletic than last year's team that lost to Louisa in the state semis. And I think having some young kids play in that game, their linebackers with Josh Coley and Trey Kennedy, Zach Noon playing some quarterback and defense, I think that helped prepare them for, you say, Lake Taylor, they're going to be ready for that group from Norfolk. Those tough kids, I think, having been on the road and played some of those playoff games will help Lafayette, and that's going to be an even-Steven type of game.
Yeah, I don't think Lafayette would be intimidated by that so-called Norfolk influence. I don't see that. I think that program has been built the right way. They're not going to back down from anybody, even if they have to come.
Well, and it helps if it's in Williamsburg, too, I think, for Lafayette, which they're in position to have.
Everybody at home is going to be, they always say it's worth 10 points right off the bat. So, yeah, anybody's going to be stronger at home. But it's an intriguing matchup, and I dare say at this point I wouldn't really be able to pick a winner, because I'd have to look a little bit more into, it's probably coming down to, like most big games in football, line against line. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We always talk skill guys. Quarterback's the most important position on a team. It comes down to line. Well,
that determined last week's Indian River Oscar Smith game. The Oscar Smith offensive line was unable to handle the defensive line for Indian River, and we thought maybe Oscar Smith's D-line could do it to Indian River's, but it was the other way around, as the D-line with Ben Smiley and Kenai Crichton and Corey Lucas and company set the tone there. As we finish up here, Ed, looking ahead to the playoffs, and we spoke about this a little bit on our radio show on ESPN 94.1, the inconsistencies for some teams. Look at the Beach last week. Take, for example, Ocean Lakes, who's unbeaten. They put a whooping on Bayside. They beat them 63-16. Ocean Lakes only scored 9 points with Jake Lowe against Salem. So Salem's defense has not given up double figures all year. Bayside comes in and beats Salem 23-20 in overtime. Now you say, well, Kalen Black and Jeremiah Brown were out. Well, Bayside had 2 corners out, and their starting center's broken his leg. So, but the Beach has been that way all year. Lansdowne starts out on fire, 5-0, lose 3-0. They turn around and beat Tallwood. Now Tavion Robinson could be out. Kellen Black was out for Salem. We mentioned earlier about Cam Kelly being injured, Jake Lowe being hurt. The inconsistencies and who's available, who's not. It's almost like with the NFL and the point spreads with college football. Is this guy playing or is he out? Almost to decide who you're going to pick for a football game in these playoffs.
Yeah, we don't give a line on a game. We just say pick them because you don't know. Injuries are going to be played a key part. You get to this part of the year, you really got to be healthy. Those teams that have their bye week now, they probably are glad because they can rest the kids and then work on some basics in practice as they build up for the game planning of their next opponent, which would be in the playoffs. I think Woodside's in that situation right now that they're actually done. Yeah. Right now, they're actually further off than anybody else.
Does that give them an advantage to maybe? And that's my next question was. We talked about these potential collision courses, your 1-2 or your 1-3 seeds with the likes of, Lake Terra Lafayette and 4. Maybe we get Phoebus Hopewell in 3. Looking past Thanksgiving, which I know is, down the road, and, we'll preview those games as we get to them if they happen. Indian River, Maury, Oscar Smith Ocean Lake seems to be a collision course, but could maybe a Woodside being a 3 seed, having that bye, and being sort of the unknown team of this group? Is there a team out there in any division that you say, all right, this is the team that's not among those, I guess you call them Elite 8 that I just mentioned, those Oscar Smith, Ocean Lakes, Indian River, Maury, Lake Terra Lafayette, and Hopewell Phoebus, that you would say in the 4 divisions as you look at your brackets now for today's playoff pairings going into the final week of the regular season, that you say, this is a team I'm circling that can win a region title that nobody's talking about in the 4 divisions?
I'm looking here. I just looked at 4.
Don't see it.
No, Lake Taylor, Lafayette.
So you don't see anybody be at Deep Creek, Kings Fork, Heritage, War Hill stopping. I'm with you on 4.
I don't.
5. Anybody stopping Indian River, Maury from playing? Although Maury's the 3 at the moment, Salem the 2. Maybe the Warriors versus Warriors. We could have Nansman and Kickinton in the first round.
Indian River. Maury could be, because of what they do with their offense, could be the one giving the biggest battle. But I just don't see it.
Class 6. See, the thing is, I feel like Oscar Smith and Ocean Lakes are still the 2 favorites, but just the fact of some injuries, and there's been a couple of games where you say, all right, something could happen here. I don't know who the hot team from the beach. There's 6 of the 8 projected to get in from the beach, with Kellam, Tallwood, Cox, Lancetown, and Bayside joining Ocean Lakes in, and all have clinched except for Kellam, who all they have to do is beat Princess Anne or have Grassfield lose to Nansman to secure the berth. There's not one that I'm confident in. I would be pretty confident in Cox if they had a healthy Tavion Robinson, but right now, up in the air without him, and without him, they could go from being a potential region semifinalist or region finalist to a team that's done in the first round.
Yeah, you're right. I don't see, a couple of those teams sputtered in the middle of the year. Bayside's a team, we talked about them in 6. They have athletes, but there are a lot of young ones, and they had the injuries early.
And they've had some ball security issues. They played really well on defense against Kellam with Anthony Parker and Tyon Pollard at the linebacker spot, kind of stepping up in those leader roles with the likes of Trey Jones moving on to Hampton University and Tyree Dozier graduating. Offensively, a lot of different guys touched the ball for them, whether it's Tajay Pollard, Cameron LeBourne, younger brother of the Florida State running back, Cameron LeBourne, and Cameron's very talented. Dejon Bowman at running back, Malik Johnson, and Nick Young, some fleet-footed receivers there. But that's weird. We were just saying Woodside could be the one team that upsets the apple cart. Their first round game with Bayside, who they eliminated last year, is not a gimme game. That's a toss-up game, I think.
Yeah, and in the 4-5 matchup, Cox, Lansetown, you'd say Cox because they got Robinson, 100% Cox, but
and they play this week, so that could, well, it won't be a rematch because one will move down. So you probably won't get Bayside. Bayside could be in a great position if they were to beat Tallwood. They lose to Tallwood, bad position. They could see Oscar Smith in the first round. But if they were to beat Tallwood, they could move them to the 4-5 line and maybe get a rematch with, say, a Lansetown who beat them earlier this year when they weren't as healthy.
Right, and then again, that's the type of Lansetown wouldn't want to see them again because they may have their number this time.
Looking at state before we finish up here, I think beginning of the year we made our state championship predictions. I have no idea who you picked, but I'm going to give you the top teams I have in the state at number 1, and one of them fell this week, which I'm sure you're about to give me a really hard time about, so I'll get over it. Westfield's 1 right now in the state. Manchester has moved up to number 2 in Class 6. With Oscar Smith's loss, they dropped from being the number 2 team in Class 6. They lost to Westfield the last 3 years in the state championship, all the way to 5, and in front of them are Ocean Lakes at 3, Colonial Forge at 4. Those top 5, Westfield, Manchester, Ocean Lakes, Colonial Forge, Oscar Smith, who wins the state title, or is it somebody else? I don't think it's somebody else. I think it's one of those.
Yeah, I Right off the top of my head, I want to say Westfield.
Okay.
Right off the top of my head, I want to say Westfield.
So you're sticking with chalk, the reigning 3-time champ.
But I don't want to go against my local team, Oscar Smith. But I got to go. I'm going to say right now Westfield.
I'm going to say Westfield's great. Kyle Simmons is arguably the best coach in the state. They've won 33 straight. They got terrific talent with Noah Kim at quarterback, Eugene Asante at running back, Taylor Moore at wide receiver. Their defense bends but doesn't break, and they lost some key guys that graduated. But are we all forgetting about Manchester? They just scored 70 on Hermitage on Friday night.
Didn't finish the half.
Didn't finish that. They had 49 in the first quarter. They got Notre Dame quarterback commit Brendan Clark. They have 4 or 5 other kids committed to the next level. Listen, I don't know that they'll win the state title. They can be tripped up, and they haven't been given a battle yet. And Westfield and Oscar Smith have had some battles. They're more battle-tested for playoff games. But I'm going to tell you right now, they're playing the best of anybody in Class 6. So if you gave me to punch a ticket, I'll go on a limb and say Manchester. Why not?
You put that kind of points on the board, they get what? You just said 7, 8 Division I players? How would you go against them? But I'm going to stick with that Westfield situation right now, but I have the right to change it at a later date.
Well, we'll put a chicken sandwich or a milkshake on it. You take the Bulldogs, I'll take the Lancers. Class 5. Highland Springs is 1 right now. Indian River has moved from 4 to 2. Number 3 is Broad Run. Number 4 is Stonebridge, who lost to Tuscarora. Oh, by the way, Tuscarora lost to John Champ last week, so it's very competitive, very fierce in Northern Virginia. Broad Run plays Stonebridge this coming week. And Ashburn, Battle of the Burn, up there. You won't get a sunburn or any burn because you'll be here in the 757.
That's right.
And number 5 is Henrico. They're not playing basketball for our buddy Vance Harmon and the Warriors, but their number 5 only loss was to Highland Springs, which is no shame in that. 1 through 5, you like one of those 5 or somebody else? I mean, it seems like Highland Springs and Indian River is a solid 1 too.
Yeah, I don't see situations where your top teams right now, the way you have your rankings right now, the state champion's coming out of that top 4.
Oh, okay, so I got it right for a change.
Maybe the placement's not quite right. I can't give you 100% credit, but those top 4 or 5
critic.
teams.
Such a critiquer.
That's what I'm here for. I got to keep you straight.
Class 4, you might critique me on this, folks. Number 1 is Sharando with Hunter and Sminger at quarterback. T.J. Washington doing some dazzling things, running the ball, catching kicks and punts. And by the way, Ensminger, as I said before, grandson of Mark Mosley, the old Redskins, great. Number 2 is Dinwiddie, but they just lost 7-0 shutout for the first time in 9 years. Dinwiddie just lost to Hopewell. Number 3 is Lafayette. They might move up if they beat Poquoson. Number 4 is Easternview. Should move up potentially. Number 5 is Blacksburg. So 1 through 5, Sharando, Dinwiddie, Lafayette, Easternview, Blacksburg. Wait a second. No Lake Taylor in the top 5. No Salem, 3-time state champ in the top 5. Did I get it wrong in 4?
Yeah, you got it wrong in 4.
So who are you picking? State champ. And you took Highland Springs in 5 if I understand right.
I would got to stick
Who
with
are you picking in 4 right now? Week to go.
Give me those top 3 right now again.
Sharando, Dinwiddie just lost, so Lake Taylor could move into that top 5. Lafayette 3, Easternview 4, and Blacksburg, the Bruins with Tyquest Terry, the UVA commit, at number 5.
The View.
You want Easternview, really, without having playing a tough schedule. But their quarterback, Matt Lowry's been putting up mega numbers.
Ooh. I don't know, that's the one that's on my brain.
So you going to go someone outside the top 5, or are you going to go with Easternview?
I'm going to go with Easternview.
He's going to go with Easternview. Cyclones fans, send him a T-shirt or a hat. If you do it, he will wear it for a future video show, I promise. Drop us a comment. We'll get you Ed Young's info. He will do it, I promise. He'll take any free food, any free gifts, any free anything that's free.
Free is my name, Brand.
That's his middle name, Edward Free V. Young. The V standing for 5. And Victory. And sometimes Victor. Class 3, I got Phoebus 1, Hopewell 2, Lord Botetourt 3, who you were killing me about with 2 losses, but they turned around and beat Northside, giving them their first loss. Northside dropped from 2 to number 4. And Heritage of Lynchburg at number 5. They lost to Hopewell in last year's state final. Got a really good quarterback in Jabari Blake. So again, Phoebus, Hopewell, Lord Botetourt, Northside, and Heritage Lynchburg. Someone in the top 5 or outside it?
I like Phoebus.
You like Phoebus to win a state championship. It would be their first since, what, would that be 2011? I think so. Sounds right.
I've got to. I'm going to go with Phoebus.
They're
I'm going
due.
with the Phantoms.
They're due. Well, the thing that's going to help them is if they get out of this region, which is not going to be easy with Hopewell and Norcom.
Right.
Region 3B, sorry to disrespect you 3B, but I'm about to. Their best team's like 5-5, 6-4. Yeah. So they'll get through 3B.
Get out of the region. That's the key.
And they would see maybe a Lord Botetourt, which you can't spell, or a Northside, or a Heritage of Lynchburg, or somebody that you can spell. Class 2, at number 1, I had Central Woodstock. They just lost.
And they just lost.
Number 2, East Rockingham, who I've been very high on with Jawan Evans at running back, closing on 2,000 yards rushing. They got Darius Brown at wide receiver also. Number 3 is Appomattox, the 3-time reigning state champs. Only loss came to Heritage of Lynchburg, a Class 3 school. Number 4 is Graham with Purdue commit Cameron Allen at quarterback. And number 5 is Glenver, the 9-0 unbeaten Highlanders, Coach Kevin Clifford's team. So again, top 5, Central Woodstock 1, East Rockingham 2, Appomattox 3, Graham 4, Glenver 5. I got a hunch you're going to stick with your preseason pick of Goochland. They've got at least 3 shutouts in the past month, and they're number 6, unbeaten. No love for your Goochland Bulldogs.
Yeah, you got them way down.
Way down. 6 is not way down.
Yeah, they're undefeated.
But can they get past Pocosin, who they lost to last year? Now you're thinking.
Yeah,
Tough path.
I'm kind of leaning to the fact that they will.
If they do, I'm telling you right here now, East Rockingham is looking like a real strong top team in Class 2. The one thing for East Rockingham might not be getting to the final. It might be beating the team that comes out west in the final if you get Appomattox or a Graham or a Glenver.
Yeah. I don't know. Give me East Rockingham to win the state title.
Oh, he's switched. He's off your Bulldogs of Goochland. Oh, my goodness. Donnie Coleman,
that's going to spur them on now.
Send them something. And in Class 1, Chilhowie, which I know you love at number 1. They lost big last year in the state finals to Riverheads, who's 2, just knocked Central Woodstock from the ranks of the unbeaten, the Falcons. Number 3 is Galax, the Maroon Tide, who's got 2 losses in the top 5, like Lord Botetourt, so I'm taking grief for that at 3, but they've got a pedigree. They win championships there, Coach Mark Dixon. Number 4 is Narrows, and number 5 was Patrick Henry of Glade Spring, who just lost the undefeated showdown battle of 8-0s. The Rebels of PH Glade Spring and the Warriors of Chilhowie. Chilhowie doubling up PH Glade Spring 46-23, as our buddy Bill would say.
We know who that is, too.
Yes. What do you got? Read them to you again. Chilhowie, Riverheads, Galax, Narrows, and PH Glade Spring. Riverheads is always a safe pick. I mean, I think they've got their mojo back, especially beating a really good unbeaten Central Woodstock team.
I think I picked Galax begin the year.
I think you were on Galax, too. You want to go back to them with the 2 losses, one of which, not mistaken, was to Glenver, who's unbeaten in Class 2.
Yeah.
That could be a matchup, a Galax and a Riverhead state final.
I'm going to stay with Galax.
Oh, he's going to go with the Maroon Tide. Well, the tide has shifted. The Alabama Crimson Tide have a great chance to win a national championship again with Tua at quarterback. But that's going to do it for High School Sports Talk Plus. We thank you for watching. Please comment, drop us a line as an email. We want sponsors. We love sponsors. If you sponsor, we'll do the show from your establishment, your place, wherever you want us to pub, we'll do it. Email us at hatfieldsports@gmail.com and listen every Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com with the coach, Ed Young. That's him. I'm Matt Hatfield. Have a happy Halloween. And go dress up as Ed Young for Halloween.
We get you some candy, but be careful out there, youngsters.
Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you in November.